I'm Dhruv from Rainreach North. In our new series called Indigenous Individuals in STEM, we talk to 5 individuals to get their unique perspective on their careers in science, technology, engineering, or math. Today, I talked to Alex Gray, who is from the Listigouche Mi'kmaq First Nation in Quebec and currently works with the Indigenous Health Professionals Program at McGill. Here's how our conversation went. Can you tell me something about yourself, your background, and what you do right now?
So like I said, I'll introduce myself in my language first, and then I'll just repeat in English. So, I just want to say, Volmeli Agwach, Ninda Luizia Luquiusak, Listigouche Glewe, Migamagi Akes Begawagi, Aka Edlugwe McGill University, Ula Isunol faculty, Ula Indigenous Health Professions Program. So, my name is Alex Gray. I'm Mi'kmaq from Listigouche, which is a Mi'kmaq reserve in kind of the Gaspé Peninsula. We call it Gaspé or Last Land. Kind of the colonial kind of name for it has become Gaspé. And I work with McGill University, specifically in something called the Indigenous Health Professions Program. I was once a student at McGill as well. I did my Bachelor's of Science here in Physiology. Graduated in 2017, and I've been working as an outreach administrator, traveling to communities, mainly Indigenous communities, going to post-secondary institutions, high schools to talk to Indigenous students about some of the initiatives that we have in our program, and at the same time, maybe recruit them and get them interested in thinking about going into a health professional program.
So when you say health profession, what exactly do you mean by that?
Oh, health is such a broad term for sure, but the way how we've kind of looked at it as our place in this institution, McGill, is we look at the health professional programs that are a part of McGill's faculty. This includes all of the schools in the Faculty of Medicine, so physical and occupational therapy, speech language pathology, medicine, nursing. We have partnerships also with dentistry, social work, human nutrition, and I don't think I'm forgetting anyone, but yeah, so we kind of broadened it more so than just what typically people think of with health when they think of, doctors and nurses, because we wanted to include, social workers have also like a large role to play in the Indigenous community. So it's kind of important for us to get more Indigenous people into these professions as well.
So you have all these departments that you mentioned, and then you're doing the outreach. So how exactly are they getting connected to the Indigenous communities outside of McGill, outside of Montreal even?
So they have, some of the schools have their own partnerships. They have placements in Indigenous communities, particularly north, or sometimes they're not as far. They could be as close as Kahnawake, which is within an hour out of Montreal. Our role kind of in that is we kind of transfer some of the general information and the people to contact. We work as kind of a liaison between them. And the number of us in this program, a lot of us are from Indigenous backgrounds. And so we kind of approach it in a way where we're always trying to consult with community. We're always including their perspectives. We also kind of put in our own Indigenous perspectives as well to help us kind of guide, well, for myself in outreach, kind of to guide, how do I go about this? So typically a lot of the outreach is done, I organize it myself unless I'm doing a collaboration, and I kind of bring the information from these schools. I'm looking next year to maybe do a little bit more collaboration with faculties. So for example, I'm going to be trying to schedule a trip to Chisasibi speech language pathology, because they have some placement students up there, and to kind of approach it, how I understand kind of engaging with, other Indigenous peoples, and to kind of help them build those relationships, but also to disperse that information to Indigenous students and get them, to start thinking about these professions a little more. These people often work in school settings, but oftentimes the students don't really know what they do, or they don't ask, or sometimes they're a little shy to ask these questions. And so we kind of present it to them in a way where it kind of piques their curiosity a little bit more.
So I've been told that you also had the opportunity to go with Rainreach North to Waskaganish.
Waskaganish, yeah.
Yeah. So how was that experience in another Indigenous community that's different from your own? And what differences do you see there?
Skaginish, yeah. So where I'm from in Nistaguch, we're not as northern as like a lot of these communities that I visited. So we
Okay.
live basically 5 minutes away from a town in New Brunswick. We have a school in our reserve. Same with the communities I visited, but I've always been very close to Montreal is within like a day's drive, let's say.
Right.
City is also a couple of hours away, so not as remote as some of these communities. So there's definitely that's quite different. But it's really nice for me to living in Montreal, being an urban Indigenous person.
Right.
Growing up in reserve, I miss home quite often, and so I get the treat of kind of being able to visit other Indigenous communities and kind of get that sense of home. Like, although we might be very different regarding nationhood and maybe in our cultures, there's still that sense of community there that I missed from being home myself. And so I particularly enjoy that, and I like sharing kind of my culture, because oftentimes a lot of these students, like when for example, in Skaginish, a lot of them have never met anybody who's Mi'kmaq before, so kind of telling them about what do we do. That allows them to kind of draw those similarities as well, and myself to draw those similarities and differences. Languages are they're proper own languages, but sometimes a word might be the same between them. Just sharing that with somebody makes it more familiar for them, I think, and it also helps me feel like I'm creating more kind of relations with people as I kind of do these communities. Because in my eyes, it's about building those kind of lasting relationships with these students, more than just a one-time visit at the school. I want them to be able to take something away with that visit, information-wise, but also give them kind of that cultural experience as well, the culture exchange.
So what about the kids themselves? Like, what do they have an outlook of science? Like, what do they think of science compared to kids who are closer to, let's say, an urban?
Mm-hmm.
So what differences did you see there?
So off the bat, I mean, seeing this in communities that I visit, I just remember it from my own community. Science is something that is very much pursued by many Indigenous people, and there's a number of reasons for that. Science has this kind of has this stereotype of being complicated. It takes a lot of work to be able to do anything with, and of course anything takes a good amount of work, but unfortunately, the reality is, especially in Indigenous communities who, they might not be able to go to urban centers to get their schooling, resources are usually quite limited. They don't have access to, materials that other schools might have, and then the curriculum, but also their interest suffers because of that. And so, it's pretty common that a lot of Indigenous kids are going to, be very disinterested early on, or maybe they just associate it with kind of that the stressful kind of test taking part of science instead of the application of science and kind of where the interesting stuff are, because they don't have that accessible to them. And there's a number of reasons for this. I mean, we can look at lack of educational funding. We can look at just placement of just natural resources even. But one of the things that I was always taught growing up was science is very much something that is all around us, and it's always very much been present in the Indigenous community. My mother was always somebody that very much mentioned that to me. And I think I was also kind of the nerd as growing up, so I would always try to find ways to implement science, let's say, in my surroundings, my everyday life. And I quickly became the note that science is very much everywhere, and it's woven also, if you really look at it. Want to kind of dissect a lot of these kind of traditional stories that each nation has. There's a lot of science teachings in those as well, and just like Indigenous knowledge is essentially science as well. And so with our camp, what we try to do, just to tangent off of this, is we understand kind of a lot of students are going to face a lot of difficulties when it comes to being able to perform in science and even be interested in it. So we have an initiative called the Eagle Spirit Science Futures Camp, where we invite Indigenous students from across Canada to come to McGill for a week. And we put them through, workshops and activities with a lot of our McGill partnering schools. But at the same time, we also have an Indigenous educator, and we have kind of community input from, Indigenous people studying here at McGill. Some of them are from their proper communities, and they help us kind of shape an Indigenous-based science curriculum. We're very fortunate that we
Yeah.
have somebody from Gedigan-Zibi, which is in the Anishinaabe Reserve close to Gatineau. He has a lot of the science teachings in his everyday work setting with, working with the students in the classroom. And he's able to transfer some of those knowledges to students here. So he'll bring microscopes, he'll, do things that are, science, but a little bit more relatable for students.
Right.